yourself, the government or the conquerors, the Philistine will defend you. And I'll get into more of that later. The Holocaust, the Spanish Inquisition, the Portuguese Inquisition, many of you don't even know that it existed. The English Inquisition, we were thrown out of England twice in the 1500s. Twice!
Wow.
Were all because the Jewish people, now I'm going to get personal, the Jewish people, trusted the government where they had settled in exile to provide the protection for their homes and their children. It's because we're so ignorant, and that's the way the devil wants to keep us, ignorant. I was ignorant a year and a half. Security guards? Where's your faith, man? You're a preacher. You're an apostle. You pray for the sick. What kind of faith are you exercising? Because I was brought up that way. I wasn't ready to receive this word. Some people listening to this word, we're still not going to receive it around the world. They're going to think I'm preaching violence. I hate violence. It shudders me to think to have to even do anything where blood can be shed. Nevertheless, the word of Yahweh says the heavens must retain Yeshua until the time of the restoration of the things that you and I are comfortable with. No. Until the restoration of how many things?
Oh.
So this is not a message to be more violent. If Muslims have 5 guns, you get 6. If the Serbians have 10, then you get 12. No, if that's what you're hearing, no, you're not ready to receive this. This is a message of restoration. Amen?
Amen.
Notice, it is, they outlawed blacksmiths. When you have no blacksmith, Darrell, you have no what? No ability to make swords, no ability to make spears. In modern vernacular, we would call that gun control. Let me explain something to you. When you hear the media and the talking heads on MSNBC and CNN talk about gun control, you know what they're saying to you? Here's what they're saying to you. The criminals will always have guns because they don't have to give their driver's license to get a weapon. And there's so much hate and bitterness and brokenheartedness in their lives that the best thing they can do in their search for glory, in the gusto, getting the gusto, is to take people away and kill them with them because their life is meaningless. So since they know they'll never be anything because they were taught that way from childhood, they want to destroy the people like you and me who can be something, who can have an ability, who have been called to restore Israel.
Amen.
And have something to live for, serving the King.
Amen.
That is the reason to live.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
So if I can't be somebody, and I know, I believe in my heart that I'll never be anybody, the best thing I can do is destroy you. When you have a calling, you're chosen, you're anointed, I can take you out. So the criminals will always have weapons.
That's right.
That's a fact. How did Hitler get a weapon in Germany when Hitler and his political party, National Socialism, were outlawed? He got it, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
How did Chung Hung Ho, or whatever that guy's name was at Virginia Tech? Do you know why he got away with what he got away? How many know about the Virginia Tech shootings?
Oh, yes.
Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
See, he was smarter than a lot of Israelites in his wickedness. He knew that if he chained the door, that the only people with guns, the security and the police outside, would be outside, and there was not a single person in that building, teacher or student, that had a carry permit that could have stopped that. He knew if he chained those doors, no one inside those doors could stop him, and he massacred 32 innocent students that had their whole future ahead of them, including a Holocaust survivor by the name of Label, my father's name, who also was a Holocaust survivor. Now let's rewrite that picture a little bit. If one faculty member, not guns for everybody, not the Wild West, one who had legally passed and the process to be armed legally. If one faculty member had a weapon, what would have happened? It wouldn't have been 32 dead. Wouldn't have been 32 dead. You could have minimalized, greatly minimalized. How about Columbine? By the time the police got there, the carnage was over. The gunman had committed suicide. How about wrestler Chris Benoit? If you're a woman in this sick day and age, thank goodness I'm not a woman. And I don't mean that arrogantly, because women have some good qualities. I've noticed that.
You're in trouble, big trouble. Should we start the complaint?
If I was a woman, let me tell you something. I would not stay for one more second under the spirit of the Philistines that wants to get rid of the blacksmiths, that produce spears and swords. Domestic violence is the #1 cause of death among women in this sick, violent society. If you're a woman, you will be assaulted by a man at some point in your life. The statistics are that 1 out of 2 American women, from the cradle to the tomb, from the womb to the tomb, will be physically assaulted by a boyfriend, a loved one, or a spouse at some point, and physically threatened with harm some point in their life. We have Jessie Davis, who was killed with her unborn child in Canton, Ohio, by a police officer. You want to trust the police for your protection?
Years ago.
And then we have Chris Benoit's, the wrestler's wife, and his 7-year-old child. He choked them to death. He suffocated them to death, Britt. They didn't have a chance. They couldn't fight back. Well, the police the police got there Monday. The wife was dead on Friday. The son was dead on Saturday. If that woman, like the Israelite teachings teach us, had some way to fend off her sick, perverted hero, to the world he's still a hero, she'd be alive. Jessie Davis would be alive. So when you hear the word gun control, think this: genocide. Think Serbia. Think Darfur. You know why the Muslims were able to massacre their Christian citizens and get away with it in Darfur in Nigeria? You know why? Because of gun control. It's true. It's true. If the citizens of Darfur were armed in self-defense only, not looking for trouble, not looking for violence, not looking for problems, do you think the Christians in Darfur would be slaughtered the way they are now? What was the first thing Adolf Hitler did when he took power? He had sex with Eva Braun, right? Wrong. What was the first thing he did when he took power? He banned the citizens from having self-defense, gun control. The Bolshevik Revolution, the overthrow of the Tsars, and the institution of Joseph Stalin as the biggest mass murderer in the history of the human race. He made Saddam Hussein look like somebody doing an aliyah for the Torah.
Wow, that's bad.
You know how many innocent people Uncle Joe Stalin killed? 20 million. You know what Hitler said? The bigger the number, the less it can be grasped. The first killing is the hardest. The first murder of an innocent life is the hardest. But the more you kill, the easier it gets, and then the numbers lose their significance. What was the first thing that Joseph Stalin did when he took power after the Russian Revolution, after Lenin and all those guys? He banned the citizens from carrying arms. It's the first thing he did. And when that happens, what happens? There's two sets of people that have arms: the criminals and the government. That's okay. If the government is kosher and the criminals are not kosher, that's okay. But what happens when governments go bad.
You in trouble.
Like Girls Gone Wild.
You're in trouble. Big trouble, too.
See, we as Israelites, we are, especially as Jews, I'm from Jewish Israel. We are taught by our leaders in America. Thank goodness, not in Israel. In America. The Aryan nations, brother, are the white supremacists, the Jew haters, everybody, all these anti-Semitic groups. They're pipsqueaks. They're not our danger, but they're good for fundraising. So the American Jewish leaders continue to entertain the spirit of anti-Semitism from these fringe groups, but these fringe groups are incapable of committing a genocide against the Jewish people. Because if 500,000 Jews out of 16 million rise up in unison, none of these white Aryan nation groups, these skinheads, can do anything. But in the history of the Jewish people, and in the history of the Israelite people, the genocides, the expulsions, the inquisitions, always, don't forget this now, if you don't remember anything else I'm sharing with you, always came from governments gone bad. Our people were destroyed and persecuted and annihilated like sheep to the slaughter, time after time, not by fringe groups that are on Donahue or on Jerry Springer. No. No, that's fear-mongering. Those groups are incapable of doing anything. Governments gone bad. You know what the framers of the Constitution knew that most Israelites don't know? They knew that if the American people had the right to protect themselves, as the Torah taught us, and as Yeshua taught us, that there would never be an American government that would dare do a Stalin or tyranny against the American people. It can never happen here. Do you understand? If the Republicans or the Democrats ever decided to bring tyranny in the United States, they could not, because there are 90 million licensed firearm owners in this country. And they're not going to bomb their people. You know why they're not going to bomb their people? Because they bomb themselves. So they can't nuke us. They can't use chemical weapons because they would kill themselves. So we are the buffer. It's not Congress. It's not the Supreme Court. It's we, the people. The American government is afraid of the people. And that's exactly the way the Constitution, the framers of the Constitution, wanted it.
As it should be.
Let's talk some more. Go down to verse 22. First Shmuel.
Teach.
Shmuel Aleph, thank you, brother. For Shmuel Aleph 13:22. So it came to pass, in the day of battle, there was neither sword or spear. Why? Because they had the spirit of foreign deities, the Gentile spirit, the Goyish spirit, had come upon the people of Israel through the appointment of King Saul. So in the day of battle, do you think we're in a day of battle today?
In a minute.
Violence, bloodshed, everywhere you turn. There are more wars on earth today than there has been at every time in the history of humanity. Attacks. Just in the last 4 weeks, 4 or 5 innocent women have been murdered and slaughtered. How about that clown in Kansas? That was only 3 weeks ago. This poor woman came out of Target, remember? She had just finished high school. She came out of Target and she became the target of this violent murderer. He jumped her, getting into her car, put her in his Ford van, killed her, dropped her body off, and they arrested him 2 days later. She could have called 911. The only problem was she was jumped in the parking lot. The Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals of the United States of America ruled the following about police protection. Ready? Let me read you this case. In Bowers versus DeVito, U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, 7th Circuit, 1982, ruled, and we'll talk a little bit about that if we have time, ruled that the police have no obligation to provide protection for individual citizens. It is the job of each individual citizen to provide protection for themselves.
That's all I need to know.
And any of these girls, if they had called 911, it wouldn't matter, because the police would have got there between 1 hour and 3 days after they were murdered. So if I was a woman in these times, I would not bow my knee to the spirit of the Philistines that says there can be no blacksmith in the land that can make the things Yahweh calls me to protect my house. Don't be a hypocrite. If you don't believe in the Israelites' right of self-defense, go home tonight and remove every padlock on your door. Go home, do it. Because Yahweh will protect you.
Get your gun. Get all that.
Don't be a hypocrite. Go home tonight and remove every lock, every deadbolt you have in your home.
Not me.
Then you won't be a hypocrite.
Give me some
But to sit in judgment of Torah, I'm not making this stuff up. This is Torah. It's up for you and I to align ourselves with the Word of Yahweh. I could not align myself with this teaching 3 years ago. I wasn't ready. I would have thought Yahweh was calling me to teach violence. Look at verse 22. So it came to pass in the day of battle, there was no sword or spear found in the hand of any of the people who were with Shaul and Yehonatan. But with Shaul and with Yehonatan they were found. You see that? The only people in ancient Israel, the first king had the sword, Jonathan his son had the sword, and you and me, nada, nunca, zero. That means they can do whatever they wanted and act like all the Gentile kings everywhere else in this world. Do you understand what I'm saying? Our threat is not from the skinheads, all my friends of color. Your threat, these people are fringe groups. They're irrelevant. They couldn't get together 10,000 if their future depended on it. The threat of the minority, the threat of the persecuted minority is from governments gone bad. Every genocide and Holocaust in the history of my Jewish people has been at the hand of a government. And so when the government tells you, you must disarm, you know what they're telling you? In self-defense. I'm talking about self-defense. Meaning, trust us for your protection.
Yeah, right. Whatever. We know better than that.
So look at the spirit of the Philistines. Rivka, I'm glad you're back. Listen, look at the spirit of the Philistines. The spirit of the Philistines says the Philistines can have weapons, and the Philistines can pass a law so that none of the innocent citizens can have weapons for self-defense, so that the criminals hold their weapons, the government holds their weapons, and you and I, who are not looking for violence, we're not looking for a confrontation, we're not looking for trouble, we're not looking for fight. We want to live in shalom. Yeshua, the word of Yahweh says, as much as lies within you, live in shalom with all men. We alone are defenseless. Because the German Jewish citizens depended on the German Reich to protect them. The Christians of Darfur are being slaughtered by the thousands because they're depending on the government of Sudan to defend them.
That's slap that crazy.
The Christians in Lebanon are being slaughtered to this day, 10 years after the Civil War ended. Because they believe the Lebanese government will protect them. When the truth, if you look at history, it is governments gone bad that have led to the genocides and the Holocaust of my Jewish people. And if you're a minority, your people as well. You understand why this message isn't popular? Come on, preacher. Prophesy smooth things to us.
Talk about the whole of faith.
Let's talk about tongues. Let's talk about the second coming.
Ooh,
Let's talk about the right way to dress in the house of Yahweh. Yeah, it's a lot easier to do that, yes. But then if I don't, I am not discharging my obligation. If I don't, I am not bearing and carrying the burden of the word of Yahweh. For it is written, the burden of the word of Yahweh came to Malachi, saying, the burden of the word of Yahweh came to Yirmiyahu, saying, this is my burden, whole wheat unleavened bread, 2 houses, Islam, the sacred name. This is my burden. What can I do? You see? Yahweh brought me to this place slowly, and I know that if what I'm teaching you is true, He will bring you to the same place. It may not be in a day, it may not be in an hour, but He will show you. Because our precious government, the leaders of our government, have already taken the mark of the beast. Islam, they're in bed with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia shuts off the oil. We're all bankrupt. No drink, no think. We all, our leaders, Cheney, all these guys have taken the mark of the beast. They're sold out to Saudi Arabia. They're sold out to the head of the beast, Mecca. Mecca is in Saudi Arabia. We can't rely on government to protect us. If they do, that's told. That's told. Look at verse 23. And the watch post of the Plishtim went out to the passage of Michmash. So in Israel, when only the government has the ability to protect themselves, guess what? They will protect their son, Jonathan, and leave you unprotected. And the Philistines will encamp against you and